Okay, so let's get started. We're going to be taking a look at working with setting up our wheel speed sensor inputs into our Motec M1 system. Now, our wheel speed sensors are used for a variety of different things. We can have them for purely data analysis purpose, but we also can utilize them for things like gear detection and traction control. There's a multitude of reasons why we want to set up wheel speed sensor inputs, and my M150, I can set up all of my wheel speeds plus front and drive speed if I want to. We'll talk about what the difference is going to be there. We're also going to be talking about how to set up both a VR magnetic style sensor and a Hall effect style sensor with our wheel speed inputs. Let's jump in here and take a look at where we can configure our wheel speed inputs in our Motec M1. Now, first things first, we're in our custom workbook area here into the tuning pages. We're going to go in here to our setup pages and move across here all the way to the right under our speed calibration. In here, we have all the information that we need in order to successfully set up our wheel speed sensor inputs. Now, in my particular vehicle here, I'm a front wheel drive vehicle and I have wheel speed sensor inputs coming into my M150 on the left side of the vehicle. On my M150, I have enough inputs to put all of the wheel speed sensor inputs coming in, but I chose just to have the left side just to keep things simple. I'm really after my wheel speed sensor inputs for gear detection and for traction control, so I need at least a front and a rear wheel speed to accomplish this task. So let's jump in here and take a look at how to set up first our front left wheel speed sensor. Now, my wheel speed sensor is going to be a Hall effect style sensor. We'll be taking a look at how to set up our Hall effect sensor, and I'll also alternatively talk about how to set up and work with a VR magnetic style wheel speed sensor. You'll find that majority of wheel speed sensors will be used from the ABS system, and therefore they're probably going to be VR magnetic. Very rarely are there Hall effect style sensors used within an ABS system. So in my particular case, I've retrofitted Hall sensors to the hubs where the ABS sensors would have been, and I'm utilizing that Hall effect sensor. But ABS sensors, VR magnetic style sensors would be completely satisfactory, and in most cases that's what I use for working with wheel speed sensors. But let's learn how we can set this up here. So first things first, we're going to go up here into our toggle window under wheel speed resources. We have our vehicle and then speed here under the estimate. Now, there is something called our vehicle speed estimate, and the vehicle speed estimate right now is said not in use. That's typically what we want to set it for. But if we go in here into our drop down, we have estimate faster, estimate slower, and race time. Now, if we're using and setting up our wheel speed sensors in conjunction with a race time vehicle speed or GPS translation speed, we can actually figure out our vehicle speed estimate value based on using either the fastest or slowest reading or the race time reading. Personally, I set this to not in use because I'm directly wiring in my wheel speed sensors, and that's what I want to have for my vehicle speed reading, and then I'll let the vehicle speed estimate be based on the vehicle speed reading. So we'll go ahead and leave that in not in use. Let's go ahead and collapse that right here. So let's go into our wheel speed, and then first here, if we go down our list, we have the ability to set up here for the front, the left, the right, and drive. Now, drive is going to be if you have a front wheel drive vehicle, let's just say in my case, and I'm using the transmission speed sensor, let's say on my Honda K24 transmission, Honda K-Series transmission. It's made it to my Honda K24 engine. We would utilize that speed sensor and set it to a drive sensor. Now, because I'm using a wheel speed sensor, I'm going to go ahead and set that up here on my left sensor. So my left option, that's where I've wired in my front left sensor into. So in this case, I have to go in and assign first where I've brought in my signal into. So we see we have a lot of choices. There's some CAN and firmware options. Now, the firmware options are going to be something that's unique to the package you're working with. So whoever has built the package, if it's going to be an OEM integration, let's say you're buying a Motec package or a third-party package, and it's a plug and play to, let's say, a Subaru STI, one of your firmware sets will be assigned to either a wheel speed or all the wheel speed sensors broadcasted on the CAN bus network. In my case, that's not how I have things set up, so I'm not going to be using any of the firmware options. I'm directly wired that in. There is also on an expansion module broadcasted on the CAN network, we could have digital inputs used for frequencies. Again, we're not doing any of that. There is also some other CAN options if we're bringing in a CAN controller or CAN broadcast input. We'd set that up Again, this is going to be assuming you're wiring in your wheel speed sensors directly to your Motec. That's typically always how I configure things. So we have to choose whether it's a universal digital input or a digital input 1 through 4. In my case, I am going to assign it to my universal digital input 3. So that's where I've wired the signal wire from my Hall effect sensor on my wheel speed sensor. So let's go ahead and set that. So as soon as we set this right here, we're going to notice on the left side we have a bunch of channels start to pop up. A lot of these channels are used to tell us what's going on, the functional status of our wheel speed, diagnostic capabilities if there's a fault condition, and then also minimum maximum voltages for the channel. We'll talk about why that's important here in a little bit. Now we do have a lot of additional things that we need to set up and configure. We find here that we have first a final drive ratio. This is typically going to be set to 1.0 if you're doing any wheel speed sensor configuration. If you're configuring, let's just say, a drive option, so you're utilizing the vehicle speed sensor on a transmission case and you're setting it to the drive, you'll have to set up pretty much all the other variables here. You would set your final drive ratio to whatever that drive ratio is going to be. So if your final drive in the transmission's a 4.75, that's what you're going to put right here.
Thanks for checking out our teaser clip. If you want to see the rest of this video and more than 500 hours of current EFI training we have to offer, make sure you click right here. If you want to go and check out more teaser clips from this training course, click here, and you don't want to miss any of the videos we're going to be releasing on this channel, so make sure you subscribe and click here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.